Resident Evil Requiem is so good. If you're looking for a short and sweet review or a reason to purchase it, then there you have it. This game is high quality from top to bottom, but if you want a more in depth review or you've played it and want to hear someone else's opinion, let's dive into it. Resident Evil Requiem is the first game since Resident Evil 6 to not have Ethan Winters as the protagonist, which is, sort of a bummer, but not a big surprise given how Resident Evil Village ended. I really credit Resident Evil 7 and 8 with getting the series back to its roots and getting me more into survival horror. The first person perspective and everyman status of Ethan really did a lot to ground the horrors in reality. Well, as grounded as they could be when the series is about companies creating bioweapons that inevitably spiral out of control and need to be decommissioned, often with rocket launchers. But if you're like me and prefer that style of gameplay, then I have some great news for you. Resident Evil 9 is a split story, half of it where you play as a new character named Grace, who has gameplay sections very much like Ethan's games, leaning more into the horror aspect. Grace is an FBI agent, but an analyst who mostly works a desk job, which really does not prepare someone for fighting to the death with monsters and zombies. As such, both you and Grace are absolutely terrified, but forced to overcome your fears in order to survive. In typical fashion, Grace's involvement in the machinations of the various big bads isn't by happenstance, but I'll talk about that later on in the video when I talk about spoilers. The other half of the game you play as probably the most beloved character in the Resident Evil franchise, Leon S. Kennedy. While Leon is suffering from the long-term effects of exposure to the T-virus during the events of Resident Evil 2, he's just as badass and sassy as you remember him. Quick on the draw, be that with a gun or a witty one-liner. His missions are nicely placed to remind you that you don't have to be completely afraid of the monsters. Sometimes these should be afraid of you. I really was concerned that basically having two games taped together wouldn't really work out well, but I couldn't have been more wrong, as they both feel like fully fledged, fleshed out games, while also serving as a narrative reason for them being so distinct. This is Grace's first day in the Resident Evil streets. Of course, she's going to be more stealthy when approaching these zombies. She's afraid, and I mean, who wouldn't be? Whereas Leon is a savvy vet, he's seen horrors beyond normal human comprehension and conquered them. You really feel like Leon can take on the world, and that no opponent is ever too much for him. The game is a love letter to longtime fans of the series, those who have been with it since the 90s, and those who just found it during the second renaissance of the series with Resident Evil 7 and 8. It has everything everyone could possibly want while tying up loose threads 2 decades in the making. I can't recommend this one enough. It has quickly shot up my favorite games of all time list, and I just cannot wait to replay it again to see if there's anything that I missed on the first playthrough, which I'm sure there is. There's always so much to these games. I usually don't give games scores as I feel like kind of takes away from writing about them and reading that writing to you. But I will say this. If I had to give it a rating, I would give Resident Evil Requiem a 10 out of 10. Now, if you don't want to hear any spoilers, please leave. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Please subscribe if you liked it. Okay, so I really enjoyed the story of this one. The idea that Spencer, the man who accidentally set in motion everything that has happened, had a last-minute change of heart, adopted a daughter in Grace, and created an antiviral for the T-virus is just absolutely fascinating, and should start to tie up the story threads of these original heroes. Leon was, of course, incredibly badass in this one, but he can't be fighting monsters forever. Plus, with things like the mold in the previous 2 titles, it would be easy to set up a new threat, causing death and destruction for a new set of protagonists. I wouldn't be surprised to see Grace return in a future title. I think she was very compelling in the same way that Ethan Winters was, an everyman character that people can relate to. I was a little disappointed to see Hunk meet his end at the hands of Leon. Granted, there was a lot of praise given to him during the encounter, and I know some people are split on whether it was really him. And I guess it doesn't really matter too much, given that a large part of this story involved cloning, and we even got a new version of Albert Wesker, who gets cured and loses his powers, which was pretty funny to see this nigh unstoppable force get just completely wrecked. Revisiting the Raccoon City Police Department was also very cool, and extremely nostalgic for fans of the older games. Another fight with a new version of the Tyrant was fun. Also, there was a cameo from the Tofu Survivor unlockable character, which really creeped me out initially because you just hear like this squishy, wet sound following you. And then you look out one of the windows of the police station and he's peering in at you and then quickly goes back to hiding. It was very strange. I was like, is my graphics card not rendering a character? Then I looked it up and no, it was Tofu Survivor. Reframing the bombing of Raccoon City was interesting. It wasn't only to contain the bioweapons and zombies, but to keep everyone from finding out that there was one last weapon to be found. Unfortunately for Umbrella and their interests, this weapon was a weapon to be used against the previous weapons as a cure. This was the kind of sequel that makes me excited to see what's next. I heard the next game coming down the pipeline is a remake of Code Veronica X, which should be very fun, but it also inspired me to go back and play some of the old games that I missed out on. I'll no longer be afraid of playing games with fixed camera angles. I will finally beat the Resident Evil remake. So, what did you think about Resident Evil Requiem? Do you agree with my assessment of the game and think that it's a 10 out of 10? Or are you not as high on it as I am? I'd love to hear from both sides in the comments. Again, thank you so much for checking this one out. I really do hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please subscribe. Trying to get to 2,000 subscribers is a slow go, but hopefully we're getting there and we can get there even faster with your help. But in the end, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed Resident Evil Requiem. Please check out our other channels, which include Those Fake Nerds for nerd and pop culture news, Wicked Sports for sports news, Better Radio for all of our podcasts and all of that. And if you're into Resident Evil and horror, check out our newest channel, History is Wicked, where we cover cryptids, urban legends, and weird history stories. Again, thank you so much for checking this one out, and I will see you in the next one.